The island nation of São Tomé and Príncipe was once known as the islands in the middle of the world. This was a strategic port of call for Portugal, renowned for its sugar cultivation and later the world's largest producer of cacao. But times changed and plantations abandoned. Now, Africa's second smallest nation is beginning a revival, returning to its agricultural roots, evolving long-held traditions, and celebrating its unique blended history. This is São Tomé and Príncipe. This is Inside Africa. This is a small island nation on the equator and off the western coast of Africa. Life here seems quiet and simple, but its role in history was far from it. The islands of São Tomé and Príncipe were uninhabited until the late 15th and early 16th centuries, when they were first settled by the Portuguese, who soon discovered the volcanic soils were ideal for agriculture. Sugar production thrived until another Portuguese colony, Brazil, began to produce a better product. By the mid-17th century, trade shifted from sugar to slaves. And when slavery was abolished in the late 19th century, São Tomé and Príncipe went back to its roots, agriculture. Some say cacao was brought here from Brazil, when the Portuguese realized they were losing control of their main cacao-growing colony. The islands were dominated by a system of plantations known as roças. These massive farms propelled São Tomé and Príncipe to become the largest producer of cacao in the world in the early 20th century.
Based on the maps I researched, there are about 530 plantation communities, more or less. At our peak, if I'm not mistaken, we would produce 50,000 tons of cacao a year. Our decline came around 1917, when the crops got infested by pests and the workforce was lacking.
100 years later, these colonial-era buildings in the roças still stand. But like the cacao industry, they are a far cry from what they once were. Bragança is an architect who is helping preserve and restore the roças, like Ubabudu, originally known as Buenos Aires.
We're facing the building I consider to be the best building on the property because of its eclectic style in comparison to the other facilities. You can see Art Deco references in the curvy columns, but also classical influences with the round staircase. It's a metal structure, while most other buildings are made of bricks and stones. In this case, we have metal structures and a round staircase.
This roça is said to be a reflection of the owner's personality.
This property had a large yard in front of the house, where workers would congregate before starting work. The owners would stand in the balcony and address the workers below.
When São Tomé and Príncipe gained independence from Portugal in 1975, many of the roças began to rapidly decline.
People celebrated our independence, and a lot of them abandoned the plantations. The only way out was a nationalization, which allows previous workers to own pieces of land in the plantation and harvest their own subsistence. But soon it became clear that that wasn't a solution. Some would harvest, others would sell the land, some have used the property for purposes other than harvesting.
Today, the main house and surrounding buildings of Ubabudu are home to squatters.
The phenomenon of the houses being occupied is a direct result of people's lack of means right after the independence and the nationalization of the cacao plantations by the São Tomeans. It was a solution they found for the lack of housing.
One of the Rosas' long-time residents is Pedro José Delgado. He came to São Tomé from Cape Verde when he was 7 years old.
My
parents came to São Tomé under a contract. My dad would tell people, "Come to São Tomé. They are hiring people to come to São Tomé." You go for 3 years, then come back for longer if you want. But since my parents came here, I haven't been back to Cape Verde.
Delgado and the other residents take care of the property and harvest their own crops.
One must do everything to support a family, because we can't expect the government will provide everything.
He plans to stay until he grows old, like many of the descendants of cacao contract workers. A determination that can be found throughout the country.
Cacao used to be harvested here until it was abandoned. But when the government started handing the land out to workers, I picked this piece of land and have been taking care of it since 2009.